Welcome back, everyone. So in this video, let's talk about actually getting these monsters that we want to pass into our card list so that it renders into the card list. As I mentioned in the last video, you're going to do it with props. So what are props? Props are pretty much shorthand for properties, which is identical to these different properties that we've already used inside of our other components. Class name, type, placeholder, onChange. These are all props of input. An input, as I mentioned, is a React component that simulates and generates a input HTML tag when you actually render it to the page. So similarly, we can pass these monsters into our card list as a prop. Now you might be wondering, what is the name of the prop? Because all these other props that we see are props that have been predefined for us. As I mentioned, onChange is one that React has actually already placed onto this input component so that we can trigger onSearchChange or any other callback that we want to pass to it whenever there's a change event on this property. The difference with other props inside of our components that we write is that we can name them technically whatever we want, but we have to make sure that what we pass in is the same thing as what the component is expecting. So what do I mean by this? Well, technically you can pass whatever you want. Let's say, for example, I want to pass these monsters through, and I want to call it monsters. This monsters will actually pass. And the way that we can check what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to pass into monsters a string for now. And it's just going to say, I am the monsters. I'm not going to actually pass the array through because I want to show you what's going to happen. Now, inside a card list component, we can actually access this as a protected keyword on this. So remember, this references the actual class component itself. And here on this, React has given us this special keyword props. And props will log out all of the props that you have passed this component inside of an object, where the key is the name of the prop and the value is the value of the prop that we pass to it. So I'm going to save here, but I'm also going to remove all these other console logs so we're really clear about what it is that we're seeing. And just in case, I'm also going to remove, I think there's one more right here. I'm also going to remove the additional callback that we passed to our set state. So now we should just see what happens inside of our component. So here you notice that what we logged out was an object where the key is the name of the prop and the value is the string that we passed to it. For now, I want you to ignore the fact that it's logged twice. We'll talk about why that's happening a little bit later. But for now, just look at this object. So any props that you pass into this component, you will see it inside of this object. So let's just quickly test this theory out. Down here, I'm going to make another value. And I'm just going to call it anything, just so that I can prove to you you can pass in anything you want. And I'm going to pass it an array where inside is a string A and Z. If I save this, I go back. Here we see that there is our new prop that we passed in, anything, with an array that contains A and Z. So this is how you can access props and pass props from one component into another. One important thing to note here now is that because we can pass anything into our props, we can now pass in our monsters. So we want to take a second and we want to think, what do we want to pass into this list of monsters? Well, this is where it's interesting to think. Do we pass in the filtered monsters or do we pass in the full list of monsters? Well, as we know, this card list component should only display the monsters. The card list itself shouldn't really have to think about how it's going to filter because that's really actually up to the search box. The search box is the one that actually modifies the monsters that are being passed into this. For this reason, there's no reason for us to tie that responsibility together. Instead, all our card list cares about is what am I going to have to display? And what that is going to be the array of filtered monsters. Now let's save and go back to our project, clear out all of this, and refresh. And what we see we're getting in is our monsters array. And as we type, we should see that this will continue to update and give us the correct list of monsters. So even though we can't see it visually, as we type in our letters, we do see that the only monster we're receiving is the one that matches the LEI string. So everything here is still working as expected. In fact, as I erase, we're getting back our full array of monsters. So here again, everything works. Now what we want to do is we actually want to render these monsters. So what we're going to do is let's go into this component and let's actually just do the same thing we did before. So we know that what we're getting back is the monsters. So I'm going to say const monsters. So I'm destructuring off of this .props. And the reason we destructure is because if we need to use this in more places than one, it's just easier to do so. And now I can just say monsters.map, the monster, and just render back an h1 where the text is monster.name. And if I save this, we go back, we see here we have it. Again, we have that warning with the unique key prop. So let's go back and make sure we have it. And here we're going to say monster.id, which we remember was what we used before to keep track of the unique keys on these h1 tags. And if we clear and refresh, we see that it's gone. And again, if I type in, everything works as expected. So just like that, we now have a card list component that replicates the same behavior we had before. One quick thing to note. What I want to do is I want to console.log here, render. And I want to go back to what we were talking about before, where what we noticed is that when we refresh, we see that the render is called twice. And here it actually has to do with the way that React renders components. I want to talk about this in the next video, but I want you to take a second to think about it. If you can come up with an answer that's at least pretty good, because it's really important here that you think and try and piece these things about how React renders together while we're learning this topic. This way you really get to think and really try and understand based on the way that React does things that we've learned so far about why it might be doing these things. So once you have an answer, or once you've thought about it a little bit, join me in the next video and let's break down why in our component we see render twice.